have, as I said, public and private sector leaders, and where we have multiple leaders from a given county or area of this region, we're going to ask that you try to keep your answers brief and to the point. As I was saying earlier, we're going to have more time later to dig much deeper down into these issues. Some issues already, there's been a lot of work done from a depth standpoint to figure out solutions. But today is going to be more to be at that 30,000 foot level and to get our hands around some of these new issues and other issues that have been here. They're not new, they've been here a long time. We just haven't got the right solution figured out. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to go alphabetically by county when I ask the question. So the first on will be Judge Executive Mike Williams from Bourbon County. But the question for all of you will be this: briefly describe the top 3 issues facing your community related to advancing the local economy. What are the top issues you think would benefit from enhanced regional collaboration? And also we can look at issues that we're already benefiting from, but what are the issues that you think could benefit from enhanced regional collaboration? Or in other words, what are those flashpoints of collaboration? So Judge Executive Williams, we'll let you take the first shot at this.
Morning, Bob. Thank you. And I'll, as you directed, I will be as brief as possible. Bourbon County obviously is open for business, but we do have our challenges, and we have historically had our challenges. First and foremost is availability of employees, workforce availability, so to speak. We have 51% of the people that went to work in Bourbon County today actually live in Bourbon County. 49% of our workforce lives outside of Bourbon County. We've also been very fortunate to recently have announcements regarding companies that are either expanding or coming to Bourbon County, and we celebrate that and say hallelujah, and then we think, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're going to get the people to fill those jobs. So that's a challenge. Housing specifically is a challenge in Bourbon County. The LBAR would tell us that there's typically only 8 or 9 houses available in that $250,000 range. There's just not houses for folks to move to Bourbon County in. And would remind you that if you didn't already know, that the population of Bourbon County in the 2010 census was basically the same as it was in 1910. So we're the exception in the Bluegrass region of counties that are growing population. And then I think certainly a challenge, I guess, that we all face is infrastructure. And we typically, historically, think of that as roads and bridges, but more than anything in Bourbon County, it's been brought to light, certainly through the pandemic time, and especially with our schools, is high-speed internet. And thankfully, we've been working with other communities through Bluegrass Ad to take some steps to make progress in the area. But certainly, high-speed internet and continuing work we're doing with transportation regarding roads is always going to be important. You want me to continue, Bob, with the second question?
Absolutely, please.
Examples, as Judge Covington mentioned just a few minutes earlier before we started, we had the good fortune to have a great neighbor in Scott County, and Bourbon County Fiscal Court, in partnership with the Scott County Fiscal Court, has advocated for and worked hard to bring some focus and attention to a roadway that connects us, US 460, as a vital roadway economically, certainly for Bourbon County and Scott County as well. And we work together to bring attention to, work with our congressional leadership, obviously, and our legislative leadership, and the community in general face a challenge. We're taking those first steps. We were fortunate to get a build grant to be able to start the work on expanding and renovating US 460, safety, dealing with safety issues, and it's going to be a tremendous economic impact to both counties long term, without question. Bourbon County has the good fortune to work with Harrison County, with what we call the Bluegrass Narcotics Task Force. The Bourbon County Sheriff, Harrison County Sheriff, Cynthiana Police Department, and Paris Police Department, as Darren Jordan will, I'm sure, agree, have worked together to address one of those pressing issues, the drug epidemic that we're all dealing with and we deal with each and every day. The problem that fills our detention center, 80 to 90% of the folks in the Bourbon County Regional Detention Center are there for drug-related offenses. So we're working certainly with our partners in Harrison County to deal with that. And one of the things that is a real challenge, becoming a challenge, and we'll need to see more and more as state government backs away from various types of support, is cooperation between counties related to agricultural issues, and there's marketing opportunities there. There's issues like that a lot of our counties, and it's not very pleasant to talk about, a lot of our counties are dealing with extremely skyrocketing costs related to disposal of livestock, and things like that. It's just a real challenge. Agriculture is still, regardless of other business advances, agriculture is still the heart and soul of Central Kentucky. It certainly is for Bourbon County. There's a higher percentage of the land in Bourbon County is dedicated to farming than any other county in the state of Kentucky. 98.2% of the land is currently today being actively farmed. That's more than any other county in the state. So agriculture and working with our neighbors related to agricultural-based marketing opportunities in particular are certainly going to be key to the success for Bourbon County. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Darren Jordan, City Manager in Paris, do you have some things to add to that?
Sure. Thank you, Bob, and thank you for you and your team's work of getting this together. And we also appreciate Community Trust Bank for their sponsorship. The judge hit on a lot of common points that we all see, whether we're city or county government. But back to the point on infrastructure, we beyond the roads and beyond the broadband capabilities, we have a real issue with infrastructure from water and sewer, and that's a big thing that we here in the city of Paris have undertaken to look at, to do an asset management, to be able to facilitate when that new company comes looking at our doorstep, that we have to have the capacity to be able to serve that. Same way with Judge mentioned about housing. We have to have the capacity to be able to serve that. And as a small community, one of our struggles is revenue diversification, and we really need the regional collaboration and support when we talk about revenue diversification down to cities and counties from the state level, of opening that up and what that looks like. And we've talked, a lot of good speakers talked about the transportation usage tax or the gas fuel tax, and the need for that to be modernized. But also the other issues of revenue and allowing home rule to prevail is to open it up for our elected officials to make those determinations and decisions about how we can generate revenue that allows for the infrastructure development here and locally. And the other big challenge that we have is education, not so much just for the workforce, but educating our community about what economic development actually is. And I think that the broader message from the region, that we can be in one accord and singing out of the same hymn book about what economic development actually entails. It's not just chasing those big smokestacks. It is diversifying our economy and looking at agriculture opportunities, looking at ag tech, looking, small mom and pops. Our main streets are just, a big driver of that. But helping educate the larger populace about what economic development truly is. And I think we, as a region, and the judge talked about our Bluegrass Narcotics Task Force, but other regional groups that we have together, I think we've made great strides in being able to move the ability to have a unified voice. And I think we just need to continue to work towards that.
Thank you, Darren. Lauren Biddle here is with the Chamber of Commerce.
From the chamber perspective, the job is much different than it was this time last year. We talk about quality of life and we talk about tourism a lot. And the judge mentioned how our population hadn't grown in a century, really. And for us, that looks like, how do we develop that quality of life perspective when our population doesn't grow? So in the meantime, we're working on trying to develop that tourism aspect so we can support the economy in the downtown area for those mom and pop shops. And how do we bring regional tourists to come shop for the weekend, stay for the weekend, have an interest in our community, and do economic diversification of where can they stay, where can they eat, where can they shop, where can they enjoy our community. So in the meantime, while we wait for that population to grow, we can support it with tourists. And that has been a struggle, but we are seeing the result of that, and our Main Street keeps growing, thankfully, even during a pandemic. I don't have three other things on top of what Darren and the judge have already said, but that quality of life and that tourism perspective are the key factors of what we're echoing off of the main issues that they're talking about.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Mayor Bertner? You have your mute button on.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Let me address something that I don't know if you'd call it the large animal in the room or not, but I do think that a discussion about this has to address COVID. I think we're hopeful, and we're hopeful when the governor talked about a two-pronged approach in March, that being robust testing and the existence of a vaccine. We've gotten to the point where the testing, I think, is pretty much in place with some hiccups along the way, but I really have some maybe concerns about how many of our people, how much of our population is going to embrace the vaccine. And I'm concerned about that because there are a lot of people that I talk to that are not inclined to do that. I think we're going to go into a period of time in which we're going to have to reset our economies. We're going to have to get our restaurants open and our tourism and our motels. But more importantly, every community on this call has a series of local festivals and events that we all canceled for the most part this past year. And let me tell you, if we go through another year in which we cancel those festivals, and in Clark County, it was the Beer Cheese Festival and the Pioneer Festival. If we cancel those festivals 2 years in a row, they may not come back. And we had, it just broke my heart. We had the Labor Day parade, which is largely an African-American sponsored event that had been going on for 104 consecutive years. And that was canceled this year. So I think there is going to have to be a mindset in our communities in which we start out the year with the strategy, we're going to have to get back to living our lives, and we're going to have to get back to a sense of community. We're going to have those local events, and we're going to have to reset, if you will, our economies. And I think it's going to begin with the vaccination, but I think it also is going to have to begin with a mindset. The schools are going through a very difficult period. I mean, I'm not responsible for schools, but I know a lot of parents and grandparents that are literally educating their children at home. And that is a tough, tough gig. It works to a degree, it works not to a degree. It depends on whether or not you have internet and you can access, but I got to tell you, I really am deeply concerned about my people and the overall mental outlook with regard to families and individuals and the community as a whole. And I got to tell you that the second large animal in the room is the drug issue. It is abiding. It is extreme. It has not lessened. And in fact, we're seeing more and more overdoses and more more and more overdose deaths as a result of the effect of fentanyl. I was with the fire chief Saturday night for about 2 hours, and she told me that she was on a call just very recently, and it took 10 Narcan hits. Ordinarily, it would take one. It took 10 because the patient had ingested fentanyl, and it's a very, very dangerous thing. I'm concerned about mental health. I'm concerned about people that suicides and just generally being in a bad place. I think workforce development for the region and for the state is critical. We have to be educating our young people for jobs that we simply don't have enough people to do. And it may not mean going to college. It may mean going to an area technology center. It may mean getting some education that are sort of non-traditional. One of the things that cities and counties that operate EMS systems, one of the real challenges we have is in being able to attract trained paramedics. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. And it's something that continues on. So I think we need, from a community standpoint, we need to have a real honest conversation with ourselves, start trying to think about restarting those community events. We need to get our mindset in a place where, consistent with what the CDC has said and everybody else, but nevertheless, we can't shut down an entire tourism, hospitality, restaurant, hotel. We can't shut it down 2 years in a row. We've got to get back to work. We've got to get, and that's not saying that we're not going to be safe, that we're not going to try to be safe. The very fact that we're having this meeting in the form and fashion that we're having it, this is not going away. We're going to continue to be having meetings just like this in 2021 because we have discovered Zoom, and it's going to continue on. We're going to have lifestyle adjustments and changes. The way that we go to school, the way that we grieve and funerals, the way that we worship and go to churches, and but we have to move forward and move ahead as a region. Yeah. We have to do that. We have to have that conversation with ourselves and move forward. So I realize I've rambled, and I apologize for that. But that's how I feel about it.
Very good. Kevin Atkins. Lexington, Fayette County Urban Government.
Thank you, Bob. I'm gonna start the same place Mayor Bertner did. You know, I think COVID is still the number one on our list, and with everything Ed said, I also think part of that is refiguring out where our economy sits even after the vaccine gets out there. How has it changed the commercial real estate market? How has it changed work from home, quite frankly, so any of our employees can work in, live in whatever county and work in another county. So how has it changed that market? How has it changed that transportation for all of us? Workforce development, everybody's talked about it. You know, one of the things I've watched for a long time is REAGAN and his efforts down in Madison County to address not only issues like opioids, but how we get these folks out of the criminal justice system and get it back to work. He was talking about it long before a lot of us were. And so do that. I think one of the things, Bob, we work on with you all is the whole career academy issue and how we get our folks coming out of the university system, how we get the juniors and seniors in the Fayette County Public Schools an opportunity, maybe the ones who aren't going on in the public school system, maybe aren't going on to a four-year college. How do we get them in the door? How do we get them some real job experience that they can then turn on into a real job coming out of that? And I think things like that and giving people the opportunity. And then the other thing, Judge Williams is the mayor's co-chair on the Regional Workforce Board for the LEO group. And that group is probably more engaged now than it's been in a while. And I think the region's going to benefit from that. We just have to do a better job of talking about what that organization can do to help. For us locally, the development of the property that we have in exchange with UK for the Coldstream property. That will, you take a look at UK's almost 700 acres that's there. You take a look at our 250, that gives us about 1,000 acres of land in one site right off the interstate. That should help, if we do it correctly, help our economy on the local level. And then I'm going to touch on one thing I think it was Lauren mentioned. We've got to continue to build out our quality of life. Here it's our Legacy Trail, the Town Branch Project, redoing areas like what's done on Southland Drive to make it more appealing. Quality of life, where we're becoming an area and communities where people in today's society who can live and work anywhere are choosing to come to this area and help us grow our economy.
Good, thank you, Kevin. Terry Bradshaw with Capital Development Corp.
So I'm not going to repeat all the things that these gentlemen said because they are obviously all issues that we all face. What I think that we will deal with most within this community, and rural communities seem to have a little harder time with this than more urban areas, but is just the adaptability to change. We get in, I think we can go back to seatbelts and recall how we were angry about having to wear seatbelts, and now I wouldn't get in the car without a seatbelt. I can't even imagine it. And so it is not necessarily that change is going to be bad. It's just hard for us to adjust to. And I think that the communities who recognize that there are going to have to be changes, I think the individuals that recognize that there are going to have to be changes will be the most successful. We will have adults who are in mid-career who will have to retrain and pick up different careers. And that's going to be hard for us to adapt to. So I believe adaptability to change within the individuals and within the community leaders is going to be important. We had also one of our site selectors, I can't remember if it was Ted or one of the girls, but they talked about how we need to not drink our own Kool-Aid. We need to be brutally honest, and Judge Bertner mentioned that as well. We will have to be brutally honest with ourselves as we go through this process of rebuilding our economies within our communities, and recognize that for us, especially for Sandy and Kevin and I, really for everybody on this Zoom, our jobs are to sell our communities. Our jobs are to say, hey, we're the best. Absolutely, this is where you need to be. So it's easy for us to get involved in our mantra and get away from the facts. And so we have to go back and look at data, look at the facts, and determine really where our weaknesses are, where our strengths are, and how we improve on those. And nobody mentioned this, I don't think, so far, which I can't believe, especially Kevin, is land development. We are suffering here from the inability to develop land, well, the lack of land to develop. And so for us, this partnership with our surrounding communities and Bluegrass Alliance that we work so closely with Jenna on allows us to provide jobs for our citizens that we will not ultimately be able to do within this county without the ability to develop land. So that partnership has been beneficial to us and will continue to be more and more beneficial as we are able to, as other counties are able to develop land and create jobs that our citizens will be able to get. And then also, I say this all the time, and I believe this with everything in me. I can give you names. Many of them are on this call, but in my job, the best information that I get, the best advice that I get, the best ideas that I get are from others who do the same thing that I do. So I think that this regional partnership, just getting to know each other, There are some new folks in our community, and I think that they're on this Zoom right now that will need to know who the leaders are in other communities, what experiences they've had, what they can learn from those folks. And so I thank you all for being on here. And I hope that you will serve as mentors and leaders, not only to the folks in your community, to the other new leadership in other communities.
Very good. And Terry, you referenced the comment made by two of our consultants yesterday, where they talked about they were stunned on our video to see the directness, the honesty, the candor of where we talked about what we're not good at. But you know what I took away from that is the world knows it. I mean, they were very clear. They knew those things, but most communities don't ever admit them. You know, all you do is sell, talk about how great you are. So that was a good point that you made. Jessamine County Judge Executive David West.
Thank you for Commerce Lexington for putting this together, because I think it's important for us to speak together. It builds friendships and bonds and levels of communication that are essential. And I'll touch on that in just a second. As far as Jessamine County is concerned, you know, we don't have a good interstate access, and that seems to hamper us sometimes. We did have an opportunity zone and a new industrial park that we are developing right now. I won't be redundant, but we face many of the problems that other people do. You know, Mayor Bertner touched on the rising cost of ambulance, and that's certainly visiting us. We hear all the time, this county's paying more, this county's paying more. We're having a hard time attracting those employees. I want to touch on something that I haven't heard. We talk about regionalism, we talk about helping each other, and I think we realize the benefits of when the region prospers, we all prosper. But those are accessory benefits to us that sometimes aren't measurable. Maybe we need to address, why would Jessamine County help a business locate in Mercer County? There's no direct benefit, and sometimes it feels like we are all on a basketball team that wants to win, but we want to score the most points and we won't pass the ball. So maybe we need to talk about there being more of a direct benefit in being able to assist each other to thrive instead of just working for ourselves. And all the other issues, workforce, addiction, internet availability, I think that's common to us all. But I want to thank you, and I think this is a great step to take. It's good when we speak together, and thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Executive Reagan Taylor.
Thanks, Bob. It's great to be on here today. Really appreciate the relationships that I have with so many familiar faces on here. I appreciate the work that we've done since I've been county judge for the last 6 years. You know, with preparing or just thinking about sort of what the discussion might be today, you know, I thought that a lot of us would be sort of singing out of the same hymn book. There's no, we're all, I guess, somewhat in the same boat. This drug epidemic, I think, is hitting our communities, and it affects so many things in so many different ways. I mean, from the workforce component, the financial burden that it's put on counties through jails. I have talked about it for several years. We tried to come up with alternative ways to be able to help these people, and I'm not going to say that I haven't been successful in it, but I think it goes back to educating our community. We have so many challenges that we face as governments, as businesses, and I think sometimes that we sit there and we think that we're talking about it and people are hearing it, but what I found that a lot of times people aren't really listening. One of the things that I learned early on is that one of my biggest goals was to educate the community on all the challenges that we face, whether it be transportation funding, whether it be the drug epidemic, whether it be broadband, so that they understand that there are things that we do that do have return on investment. But we have to be able to be willing to invest to ultimately see the return. Broadband is something that has always been a concern of mine, But due to COVID, it's really brought it to the top of the list. I was concerned about broadband. We've talked about it many times with my team. I'm fearful that our rural counties and our rural properties in our county, property values over time are going to go down because people aren't going to want to purchase if you do not have high-speed internet capabilities. A lot of people want to live, you know, sort of out in the rural part. It's quiet. It's beautiful. You know, Commonwealth is gorgeous, but internet, high-speed internet is going to be just as important as electric in the coming years. And so if you can't get people to buy houses out there or buy properties or buy farms, then the values are going to go down, which is going to financially affect counties. One thing that is very challenging in Madison County, and that is in our unincorporated area, that might be a little different for us than maybe other counties, is that we have become an urban county in parts of our county. We do have 7 interchanges in Madison County on I-75. We have expanded sewer out into our more rural parts. And when you become an urban county, then your citizens, your businesses, they really expect and want urban services. And those services that they expect and want cost more money. And by statutes, counties don't have a lot of revenue streams like your cities do to be able to provide those services. Just example, recycling, you know, improvements to roadways, broadband, you know, high-speed internet, and being able to support financially those upgrades. Transportation funding, I think, is critical. It's not just critical for my county, but it's critical for the Commonwealth. It's hard to attract business. It's hard to get people to work if we have bridges that are out, if we have potholes that need to be replaced, if we have traffic issues. Those things are not very appealing to citizens nor businesses or industry trying to get that you're trying to market to come to your communities. I want to thank you all again, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity for being on here with you all. It's been an awesome 6 years, and I can't wait for another 6 so that we can keep this momentum going, because I think that we've done an outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Taylor. Now let's go on to Montgomery County. Sandy ROMENESKO, the Chamber and Industrial Authority. Sandy.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different perspective coming from a chamber and an industrial authority role rather than a governmental role. Well, it is governmental in a sense, but one of the things, thank you, Bob and Andy, for asking me to be on here. And I wanted to thank Jenna for allowing me to be in the Bluegrass Alliance. I had to beg a lot of years because I'm one county, not contiguous, and you finally let me in. So thank you, because I think Montgomery County has more in common with the Bluegrass region than we do with the Eastern Kentucky sector of the community. When I went to meetings there, they would say, we need jobs, and I would say, we need employees. So thank you for allowing me to be there. I wrote down several things. One is diversity, and I don't mean diversity in the way that it's big right now. I mean diversity in your manufacturing sector. I think as a group of Bluegrass Alliance, we need to target diversity. And I'll tell you, in Montgomery County, we have a large sector of food-based industries, automotive, plastics, foam, metal, all kinds of different industry, which has helped us be recession proof. When one economy, the manufacturing in automotive went down during the COVID, we still had really strong industries creating jobs for us. So we've been very blessed in that sector. Workforce, everybody's belabored that. I want to thank Jenna for the marketing that we've done together as Bluegrass Alliance. I honestly think that our Bluegrass Alliance group does, I don't want to get creamed here, but I think we do better than Kentucky United, targeting our site selectors and our CEOs of companies. I participate in Bluegrass Alliance and do not participate in Kentucky United. I think we have a better market and a better presentation as a group. And the land development thing, there's got to be a way. I think Montgomery County and Clark County have a unique opportunity at Exit 101 to develop land, but we need to find a way to tax share the taxes generated from that. And if I can encourage the state in some way to help us fund land development and infrastructure. That is very hard for a rural community to buy 100 acres at $5,000 an acre and then develop it. I mean, as county judges, you all know your budgets can't stand it. And it's very hard to come up with that kind of money. And we need to do that as well. We have, in this community, I've got to brag, we were the 7th community in the state to become work ready. We were the 2nd in the state east of 75 to have a build ready site. And we were the 1st in the state to be fiber ready, certified by AT&T. So we've been as progressive and hardworking as we can be as a community, but there's a limit what you can do when funding is not available for certain things. We've done a great job here downtown development, and I encourage everyone to work on that. We have I don't know that we have a storefront now that's empty, which is amazing for a rural community in this day and time, and a bypass. And we have a very busy bypass as well. I think the state should work to get fewer counties. Maybe, you know, Clark and Montgomery could merge at some point. Ed, you could be mayor of both. Not that I'd like to get rid of Mayor Botts, because I wouldn't. I think he's awesome. My phone was ringing. The other thing is housing. We have a housing shortage too. So if there's some way to
Sandy,
have
Sandy,
yes.
That was Mayor Botts calling, by the way.
I'm sure it was. And the one thing, Lauren, you know how we as chamber directors Zoom on Fridays and talk about what we're doing in our communities and share ideas, which I've got great ideas from you, and I hope I've shared some with you. I think our ED group should do that, Jenna. I think we should Zoom one day a week for an hour and talk about what projects we're working on, or how we're financing something, or what we're targeting, or how we can work together more. I think that would be very beneficial to us. So I tried to bring, whereas Ed brought forth all the problems we have, I'm trying to bring forth solutions for you, Ed. So, Montgomery County is very thankful to be here, and thank you all for all the support over the years.
Sandy, thank you. And yes, Jenna fought year in, year out, and said it makes sense. And I'm glad you're at the table with us. So
thank you. Thanks
for your persistence, and thank you, Jenna.
If I'm nothing if not persistent, aggressive, and tenacious.
Okay, Scott County, Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington.
Unmute. Hey. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, and thank you, Bob and Andy, for your work on this effort. Don't want to sound like a broken record for sure, but the number one challenge, I believe, is with the impact of COVID and how it has magnified the need for expanded broadband connectivity out in the rural part of our community. Before COVID hit, I was working with the Bluegrass Ad and in that group, and we had gone through a process and put out an RFI just to explore, engage interest from ISPs about how we could regionally approach expanding broadband. They don't stop at the county line. The need doesn't. And we made ground there. We worked with several different counties. And at this point, what we ended up most recently on a regional approach, we with Bourbon and Woodford counties, we applied for a state ag board grant that helped us do a broadband rapid design feasibility study that kind of gave us a broad, a baseline of where we are and where we might need to go. So what we've done in Scott County is we've taken those next steps, and we've hired a firm, CTC Technology, to help us get there and make it reality, hopefully. And I'm hopeful that what we do can be a beta test for the rest of the region about expanding in the rural part. And, it's a challenge because of there's so many aspects, and private ISPs, they want to look at that bottom line of the return on investment. Putting fiber to the premise is an expensive proposition, and that return on investment is number one for them. So how can we as a county or a regional group reduce that barrier, and hopefully there'll be more federal dollars coming our way. You know, I looked at this morning the results of the RDOF auction for Scott County, and in this first phase it was just released, and Scott County, it was less than $30,000, and some of that problem from this first part of the auction was that I believe the FCC data is just not accurate, and it's based on if one place in a census block has connectivity, then the whole census block is not eligible. And I've worked with Stephanie Nelson and Senator McConnell's office trying to address that, and hopefully by the time the next auction rolls around, that'll help us. But just trying to move the needle and get more people connected in our community. The first thing a business does when they come and consider, in my thought process is they consider our community, that quality of life. And part of that quality of life aspect is, you know, what type of broadband can I get if I want to live 5 miles out of Georgetown? And it's just so important. So, you know, we've been working regionally. I've tried to push ahead a little bit. We'll continue to work regionally to try to work together on that. And I think that's huge for us. And then, you know, we've all talked about the drug epidemic, and there's no question about that. What I think we could continue to work on is how can we help those that have been impacted by addiction get training to where they can move forward with their life and get a job and be a part of the workforce. And I think a regional approach, you know, one county can't be all for everybody. And you know, maybe Madison County provides training for welding, and maybe Scott County looks at a different aspect of, you know, how we do that. You know, I recently saw an article about county jail in Hillsborough County in Florida. They had job training right in their detention center for welding and tow truck driving certification, just a variety of things. You know, how can we help those folks that have came into the criminal justice system because of addiction get the training they need to stay out of it? It's obvious that to continue to put an addict in jail is not doing anything. We've got to find ways to creatively give them opportunities to you know, help themselves up out of that. And Reagan's talked about that quite a bit. And what we have done here in Scott County as a first step is we've entered into a partnership with the Shepherd's House, and went over to Danville, talked with Judge Hunt over there. They had a great program going and used that as really an example for us. And they are working with our justice system, and instead of individuals that had low-level crimes that are related to addiction and their issues are related to addiction, instead of them being sentenced to jail, they're working with the Shepherd's House and getting counseling, job training, you know, but not enough in my mind yet on the job training aspect. So if we could increase those opportunities on a regional level, that would be a benefit, I believe. And then, you know, it's been mentioned already, but in Scott County, you know, how can we work regionally about affordable housing and affordable housing initiatives? That is a challenge here in Georgetown and Scott County. And then looking, you know, at the second question, what are the top issues you think the community could benefit from or already benefiting from? Before this call started, I mentioned, you know, I'm about to complete my second year as county judge executive, and the relationship part that other county judges and other government officials have reached out to me and just been a resource for me. It's just a very positive thing, I think. And I think that's good for our region that, you know, I went and had lunch with Kevin Atkins and met with Kevin Atkins and Mayor Gordon several times on different aspects and different items. As I mentioned before, worked closely with Judge Williams from Bourbon about the 460 bill grant. Judge West and I met and talked about different aspects. And then, you know, Judge Taylor's gone above and beyond out of the way to help me And we've collaborated on several different issues. One, a regional radio network that I think will be a very, very good thing for all of Central Kentucky and could impact and help many communities if they wanted to join us as we move forward there. So very, very positive things. That are just the relationship aspect, I think, is good for our region. So appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Judge. Kim Minke with Toyota.
Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate being with you all today. You've heard a lot of great activity that's going on, a lot of similar concerns that we all share in, what our challenges are in each of our communities. A couple that haven't been mentioned yet that I'd just like to throw out there is that balance of residential growth to manufacturing growth or business growth. Being able to maintain that balance, and that's where the judge was just mentioning affordable housing and those kinds of things. We're growing in Scott County. We're blessed, but unfortunately, residential growth doesn't pay the bills. And I think someone else mentioned that up front as well. And so we've got to strike that balance. The other thing is, because of that growth, we're seeing issues with sewer capacity. And so we're having to do infrastructure improvements there to improve our sewer capacity as we're seeing that type of growth. And then the third area there obviously is landfill capacity. We're losing a landfill here in our region. And while we don't want to put things in a landfill, we want to recycle, there's just some issues that you've got to have it as a resource. In terms of regional activities, we have so many good things going. And, everything from the alliance to these partnerships between counties to do roads and drug treatment centers and so on that you've all described. I think now it's time for us to take a bigger step and to really get to the point where we can formalize agreements that look at all the strengths that we all can bring to the table, as well as all the resources that we bring to the table. And then from that, develop, a sharing agreement going forward as well. For too long, we've looked at the county lines as barriers, and they're just the unique lines that show how diverse we are and how special we are, but it's the collective that really makes the difference in any organization. And you can transpose that into this discussion as well. So if we don't have a diverse group bringing all their resources together for the region, it's very difficult to compete. So I think, we have the opportunity now. There are a lot of things that are working well. So for instance, in workforce and workforce participation, there's so many folks that are not in the workforce, and it's because they have barriers. And so being able to formalize a group that can pull on all the resources that we have. The local and state workforce boards are working on this, as well as a lot of companies, looking at what those barriers are and coming up with ways to fix those or to ease those. Things like just basic skills training, reliable transportation across county lines, because our workforce comes from the region. We can't self-populate ourselves. We've all known that. We just need to deal with it. Having affordable daycare. And for those that are on public assistance, for far too long, they've had this benefit cliff. So if they take a job or they take that promotion, then they lose benefits. So we need to come up with an off-ramp. And I'm really glad to say that the State Workforce Board is really working on that and has a strategy for that, so that we can ease folks into employment or better employment so that they can become self-sufficient. So those are the kinds of things that we need to work together on workforce to be able to have full participation in the workforce in all of our residents that are able. The other is from an economic development perspective. Again, the Alliance has been the lead shining star that has brought us together to be able to do this. You know, maybe it's time that we take a better look and a deeper look of formalizing that partnership. And again, bringing the resources together to develop a regional strategy that then we can implement on a regional basis and do that sharing that I was talking about earlier as well. Again, I think we're on such a great path and a great trajectory. You have to take the next leap of faith. And I think we're getting really close to being able to do that. It's just a matter of defining what are all the needs and how do we all benefit. You know, the old adage, you know, rising tide raises all ships. So, you know, we're in this together. It's not a us versus them. It's together. And if we do it together, we can really make it happen. So that's my suggestion moving forward is we formalize and we get down to brass tacks and really be honest about what our needs are so that we can all benefit.
Very good, Kim. Thank you. Woodford County Mayor, Midway Mayor, Grayson Vandegrift.
Thank you, Bob, and everybody at Commerce Lex, including Katie. Everything that you all touched on today is an issue in Midway and or Woodford County. And my middle of my second term as mayor of Midway, I can certainly speak on behalf of Midway. I'm going to do my best to speak on behalf of the rest of Woodford County today as well. So each of those issues is a problem in Woodford County as well to an extent, but I think our top three issues are, the first has been touched on as well, housing is an issue. And of course, the nebulous nature of what affordable housing really means and whether it can actually truly be achieved with development costs these days. But that is an issue we're facing. You know, my constituency in particular, Midway, is a very preservationist constituency, yet we've been fortunate with our exit off of I-64 and our industrial parks, industrial parks growth over the last 6 years and creating over 600 new jobs. That's lessened our tax burden. It's been great for us, but the question becomes then the housing to help support those employees. Right now, we're benefiting from Scott County's growth and housing growth and Fayette as well, but I don't think that's sustainable going forward. So I think that's a problem all over Woodford County right now. And then I think diversification has been touched on. I think in particular, we need to focus on trying to get more high-tech industry into Woodford County. We've been very successful lately with light industry, which has been wonderful. But I think commercial is going to struggle for a while now. And I think, frankly, you know, if we're going to try and keep our people here, especially our young minds here, we're going to have those jobs of the future, which are going to be probably more towards the high-tech industry. And then I think the third thing we have to do, and I think everyone would probably agree, we have to find ways to lessen the tax burden on folks. Our job creation in Midway has been able to help us do that. And I think to some extent in the rest of Woodford County, that's the case as well. But I think one of the biggest issues hurting us right now and into the future is that we have a 50-year-old high school, and the county, the citizens of the county recently voted down the nickel tax. I think mostly because of fatigue from seeing most of your property taxes go towards schools, and they don't want to see that go up anymore. That's understandable. So how do we lessen that tax burden on our school system so that we can have those things like a new high school? We've got a wonderful education system in Woodford County, but as that school falls apart, it's not great for attracting new industries. We have really been fortunate, and we have had a lot of success from regional collaboration these last several years. And I thank organizations like Commerce Lexington for that, as well as many others. One thing we're benefiting from right now, to be frank, is that job providers in Lexington are oftentimes running out of space. And you know, we're snatching them up. Now, that's not something we celebrate because that's not necessarily good for Lexington, and we need Lexington to be the standard bearer in many ways as the largest metropolitan area. So I think we going forward need to find ways where we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. And then in this post-COVID world, whenever that time comes, and I think Mayor Burtner's right on about leaders have to step up right now and convince folks that this virus is real and that this vaccination is going to be completely necessary for us to get our economy back on track. But in this post-COVID world, Mr. Atkins touched on this, commercial real estate could be a mess as companies realize they don't need all of the office space that they thought they did before. And I think, how do we work together to make sure we don't have a bunch of empty buildings in our communities? How do we infill those and going forward? And then the last thing I think going forward on collaboration is how we can actually merge services even between counties, believe it or not. I'm not going to get any Christmas cards from Kentucky American anytime soon. I've been very upset with their continued rate rises. And so we're going to work, our contract with them expires in 2025. It's fully my intention to continue moving forward to talk to Frankfurt Plant Board or Versailles Municipal Water to start buying water, because we can get water much cheaper from them. And in my opinion, we all know this, I think local governments and local public servants tend to be the most efficient, and they tend to be the people that are on the ground and can hear the voices the most strongly. By merging some of these services, we could save a lot of money, ease our tax burden for water and sewer for us. If we suddenly are paying 40% less for our overhead on water and sewer, think about all the money that we can put back in our residents' pockets, but also all the money that we can put back into our infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure that we all have to upgrade over the coming years. So I think that collaboration going forward is going to be very important. And it's only taken me about 6 years as mayor to realize I'm going to be more involved in these types of things, bluegrass ads. So I'm trying to get branch out and more, but I appreciate all of the opportunities, and I appreciate Commerce Lex for hosting this today. And Bob, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mayor. And finally here, Jenna, did you want to add in some comments?
I guess I'd just go back and repeat everything others said. So when we're doing existing business interviews, we hear a lot on the skills gap and those kind of things. So Betsy, again, Kevin mentioned it. We're working through that right now with our career academies. And then I'm still seeing available properties as an issue. So when we have clients that come through us, it's not just land, it's buildings. So as projects are coming through the door, there's, in terms of light industry, there just isn't any on the market, not very many available properties on the market in Lexington. And even when I'm doing RFPs with our Bluegrass Alliance partners, we're running into land issues for the region as well. So not just Lexington, but the region is becoming more constrained as well. So, when you respond to RFPs pretty regularly, the folks that are divvying them out recognize our challenges, and sooner or later, I'm guessing, we're all going to have to get together and figure this out. But workforce is key when I'm doing the existing business calls with our team and the Lexington Economic Partnership. Finding space for existing businesses here as they want to grow is challenging, and then being prepared for new opportunities as they arise. And then I would echo the comment on commercial real estate. I do worry about vacant office space on the market and what could happen to our commercial and our developers and the people that own these buildings that are already here. So that's kind of sits in the back of my mind is, we have to think about how can we help those existing businesses, the people who have the properties that are going to be challenged when folks say I need a rent reduction to be able to stay in 3 floors of an office building. And those things are coming as a nation in general. But anyway, those are my top issues and for the Bluegrass in Lexington. So
thank you, Jenna. And I want to add in one other thing that Fayette County knows about a huge focus on, and that is minority business development and working with procurement opportunities. Kevin, I think this is a huge thing for this region. I would echo all the things that you all said, but again, all of us have to be growing and climbing out from post COVID-19, but that's a significant thing. In wrapping this up, we could go on for a much longer period of time. I think this points out we need a game plan. And we're doing a lot of things individually, collectively, but we need that game plan collectively that we all pull together, public and private. Ted Abernathy made it very clear that regions that are most successful are the ones that are with strategic economic plans and shared goals. And I think until we start to build that, mold ours, Kim, it's going to be hard to take that next big step. But I think collectively, we're all saying that we know we have shortfalls. We know we have opportunities. We're no different than anybody else. So it's not what the others are doing, it's what we do collectively as a region. So I would just throw out to you all, I would like for us to sit back down and start to build out that regional economic growth plan with shared goals for business, climate, infrastructure, talent, and that also makes us all accountable to each other. I heard that in there too, as far as comments that as we go forward, there's a lot of roles we can all play collectively together. So I'm just going to ask all of you, we're out of time here on this segment, but get back with us, please. Let us know if what I just shared with you makes sense. I'm building that plan, your commitment for that plan, and to making us all accountable for each other. I'm like him. I think we're sitting on a gold mine here. We got a lot of challenges like everybody else, but it's what we do collectively to go. And but you got to start with a plan where we all know each other's roles and how we go forward. So with that, I just want to say thank you all very much. This is incredible. We could have gone, like I said, hours. I think it's fascinating, but you know, we got to take what the ideas, the thoughts, and we got to take it that next step to get solutions and accomplishment. So to all the panelists, thank you so much. For all of the participants, thank you very much for your time. And a reminder, our next session begins at 11:15 with Todd Johnson with the Building Industry Association of Central Kentucky and Justin Landon with the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors talking about housing affordability. Thank you all very much.